the end of communism, as well as by the passing of time since the Holocaust. It is striking, for example, that Jewish studies departments are thriving at Polish universities. The work of these historians is pioneering. It has certainly proved of great value to this book. As to how I came to place such a burden of meaning on the unassuming bagel, it all started when I discovered a bagel equivalent, the Bagel or Owajanek, in the Polish city of Krakow in 1984. Having literally survived on bagels as a graduate student in Washington, D.C., I was missing them terribly in the ration book Poland of Communist General Jaruzelski, where I spent a postgraduate year at the Jagiellonian University, learning Polish and discovering my roots. After making the inevitable comparisons in taste and texture between bagel and bagiel, I became intrigued as to what the connections were between the two breads. And over the years, as I investigated further, I came to understand that my own family history was relevant to that of the bagel. My father's family is Polish, part Jewish, part Gentile. Both sides were actively involved in Polish public and cultural life. My Jewish great-great-grandfather founded the Warsaw Philharmonia. My Jewish great-grandfather founded the Polish Institute of Hygiene. My Gentile great-grandfather was leader of the Warsaw City Council and the author of a book about pre-war Warsaw. My Gentile great-uncle was one of the country's leading poets in the 1920s. They all doubtless frequented the Blekel Cafe as well as bought bagels from roadside peddlers, and they were all key players in the multicultural Poland encountered in this book. On the other side of the Atlantic, my father was the wartime immigrant who became an American and raised his family in the greater New York area during the 1960s. We did not, however, have bagels at home. I ate my first bagel in a university canteen in the early 1980s. And it was green. Green for St. Patrick's Day, thereby signaling, although I was not aware of it at the time, that the bagel was well on its way to becoming an all-American bread. Over the past 20-odd years, my enthusiasm for eating bagels has not dimmed, even though I now live in Great Britain, and somewhat controversially for New York friends, laud the virtues of the bagels made in the Jewish bakeries of the London suburb of Golders Green. So with my bagel credentials and motivations clearly on the table, it is time to define terms. The bagel, according to Webster's Dictionary, is a hard bread roll made of yeast dough twisted into a small donut-like shape, cooked in simmering water, then baked. This is an admirably clear and concise description, but it raises immediate questions. What makes a bread roll hard? Why is the bagel ring-shaped? And why go to the trouble of boiling before baking? The search for answers to these questions has taken me to places, southern Italy and northern China, not usually linked with the bagel. What is clear is that the bagel has a host of possible ancestors, and most of them are not Jewish. The next question is, why Poland? Why is it that, as Leo Rosten points out in his perennially popular Joys of Yiddish, the first mention of the word bagel in a 17th century Yiddish source is recorded in the royal city of Krakow? And how did it come to pass that the most popular legend about the bagel, still regularly told, concerns a Polish king and his dramatic victory over the Turks at Vienna in 1683? When I first started trawling through memoirs, newspapers, novels, songs, and paintings for mentions and sightings of the bagel in Eastern European Jewish life, I wasn't sure what I'd find. There is, I admit, some bias to this research. Most of my sources are Polish, both in Yiddish, read with the help of Yiddishists in London, New York, and Warsaw, and in Polish. But with so much of European Jewry over the centuries having lived in what one might, for simplicity's sake, refer to as Greater Poland, or in lands that were once Polish, which include much of today's Lithuania, Latvia,